Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we'll be going through the trade targets for round 16 of the AFL SuperCoach season, with there being quite an obvious trade target this week. If you don't already have him, I'm pretty sure he's going to be still the most traded in player just because he still is basement price, and he'll probably end up being 60-70% owned. Well, there's probably not that many teams left actually actively playing, but yeah, he is now owned by 31% of the comp. And just looking at it quietly here in the top 10%, I wouldn't be surprised if that's 70 or 80%. He is now up to 89% in the top 10%, which is, yeah, so mostly top 10% are obviously still playing. And then in the top 5%, I wouldn't be surprised if that is 95% also. He is owned by 92% in the top 5%. And then in the top 1%, he is owned by 95%. So yeah, Tom McCarthy is the obvious choice for rookies with that massive negative break even. And that's even before he hits the threshold. So anyway, let's jump into this and all the stats that I was basically rattling off there. As you can see, the 59,000 and 31% ownership that I was first, and then I went through the top 10, 5, and 1% figures as well for that. And yeah, Tom McCarthy is the obvious trade in target. Harry Ralston, I think most people will potentially look at him next week if he holds this spot. If you do still have trades, he's a guy that will probably make cash quickly. If you do have the ability to sort of use him as a way to make sort of, let's just say 70 each week for the next couple of weeks, he's probably going to go bang, bang, bang and be 280k very, very quickly. So yeah, he could be a guy that you use if you've still got like 10 trades left at the moment. You could easily have him still, if you're down to 7 by the outside of the buys, you could still use him, and it would enable you to pretty much be able to get 100k, 120k out of him, and then move him straight to a 99k rookie. That's probably not going to play, but still 99k rookie, you get 180k there out of that as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some people jump on him after his buy this week. And then it's basically Archer May if you need a forward, but a lot of people have, I think, dead forwards in like Ross, Simpson, etc. Simpson would have been so good in this time because we sort of needed that extra player. And yeah, especially with like Carroll being dropped, so his shoulder going kind of does suck. Madden, I don't know if he plays out of the bye. And then you've got Butler here as well, who's someone that I did look at. But I think Liddy is just a better, cheaper, given the trade amount that we've got. A lot of us are down to 2, 3, 4 trades. I think Liddy is the better option, basically getting that 27, 28k saved there for out between Liddy and Butler. Okay, so then Ramsden I don't think is going to necessarily play, or is he going to play? Let's see. When was his last game? Because let's just see this. He played round 13, 14, so he could play, but you've also got this week, but you've got Mitch Lewis returning, and they expect him to play 2 games in the VFL before probably taking over Ramsden's spot, you would expect. Liddy, I think, is the obvious midfield rookie trade in this week. He's going to be part of my plans because I already have McCarthy, because yeah, 99k, he's going to play games. You'd expect him to have, with what, 9 games remaining, I'd expect him to have maybe 1 or 2 fieldable scores out of the 9 if he plays all 9. That's only like, what, 11, 22%, somewhere around there. But that can really just set you up for the week and really just defend you from disasters. I know that it may only be the case of potentially saving you 30, 60 points with the way he sort of plays and stuff like that. But that alongside the 30k that you save from him going to Butler instead, it could be huge. It's the difference with me. I know I already said my trades on the Monday night and I'm sticking by them. But yeah, that is the difference with me getting the big boys in on the right week in Butters and also BONT, aside to getting in a Butler and not being able to get those 2 in. So that's what I'm looking at there. Martin on the buy, no, and then there really isn't anyone else, to be honest with you. Sin's got a negative 28 break even and looks to be the designated ball handler, given that Rosie's gone into the midfield, and Bergman isn't as much of a ball handler compared to him, so that could be interesting at 222k, but that's just inflated. If he was like in the 160s, I think a lot of people would potentially look at it, because he's gone up and down in price. Again, if we look at it, he was up at 290k and then had a couple of bad games, and then a sub game, I think an injured game as well there in there. So he's had everything in between, and then had a really good game on the weekend for a 92 against Sydney. So yeah, if he gets back to that major ball winner at like 280k, that could be an interesting extra player. But then again, he's another defender, and you can't really be fitting all these defenders in there if you've got Mills in there, unless you move McCarthy into the midfield. Vicentini, Lipinski, Hayes, Al-Hawley, no one else here really that matters. And then we get to the coach's choice, and we'll go top 10% here, and we will run through this one. So most people this week are bringing in Liddy. Yeah, I think this is an obvious one. He went, what's he gone, 260 scores, etc. He's a cheap guy that's probably going to play for the rest of the year, and I think he's only going to get better. I have a feeling you're going to see a spike score soon. So if we can, and I was actually looking at it, it's not like he's going to be able to actually play in front of a lot of my guys, just because like Cooper, Lucas Camparelli, sorry, not Cooper. Lucas Camparelli has really early games in a lot of the weeks, but there's still a couple weeks that he can impact. And that's beside the point that Zach Johnson may get dropped, or you may trade a Zach Johnson to a 99k dead rookie, and then you have maybe a flexible, a mid rookie, or a mid forward, another mid forward, or a mid defender rookie, etc. And then you have flexibility across all lines. That's something that I'm definitely looking at when I do make that last move. And suddenly Liddy, probably his schedule starts to open up a little bit in terms of he can be fielded, because he has early games on Saturday, etc. in the future, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, will be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, not playing obviously this week, which is good. Playing tonight, we'll see how he goes, but I think he's the obvious one. Darcy, McCarthy, Mills, BONT and Pelly. Yep. Well, the good thing is I can already say which one of my trades, because I've already done that video, which is good. But yeah, Liddy, Bontempelli, and Butler, Butters, sorry, are the obvious ones for me. And that's the ones that I've said all week and are sticking by. And yeah, that Liddy just allows that to happen where Butler doesn't. And that's the big difference, just because Bontempelli decided to go 170. If Bontempelli went, I think it was something like 120, 130, I get in Butler instead of Liddy. We'll have that argument between those two. And I would probably side with almost Butler, because I'd have Zach Johnson in the midfield and could have an actual forward rookie that plays. But yeah, that is basically the decision there. And so yeah, I would much prefer Liddy over Butler. McRae, understand that he came back, and it's just a question now whether he gets his tog back. If he gets his tog back up into the 80s, he is going well. Whereas if he gets it sort of sticking in the low 70s, like it has been for 2 weeks, then that could be a potential problem, because if he's just not out on the park enough, he's not going to be able to score. Luke Jackson as a solo ruck is an outstanding selection. He went 180 last week. Even if you just took his sort of fantasy numbers, not even his SuperCoach numbers, because obviously he gets the multiplier because he's a really efficient ball user, as well as getting the hitouts to advantage. If you just use that, he's still averaging 98, 99 or something like that. Let alone the fact that this isn't fantasy and it's SuperCoach, and he's on like a 1.2 multiplier. Yeah, he is an outstanding pick, and if you can get him, if you don't have to break the bank to get him in. Horn Francis, Nick Dacos, Bo Allen. Bo Allen, I'm pretty sure is going to be selected to play. So at 119k, one break even, he could be a guy that turns it around late this year. But yeah, he's just been stuffed over by the subs. And the sub use there, because had 2 games of sub. When he isn't sub, he averages 105 divided by 2, so that's 52.5, so not even that bad. Wayne Malira, understand this as well. A lot of people need those backline guys, can have the ability to sort of go that 130, 140 weekly, compared to the midfielders who get tagged, etc. Wanganeen Malira doesn't really get tagged. So will be interesting to see how he goes for the rest of the year, but I'm predicting him to go sort of that D3 behind. I think there's who are we, if we just do this, and I'll get back to it as well, but if we go round 15 summary here, and then we go average, and then if we go average, and it will load, and then we'll put a filter on for the defenders, and we'll let that run through. You've got McCarthy. I think he'll drop down eventually to around about that 100 marker. Sinclair, Holmes, Ash, Wanganeen Malira, and 109. I think Wanganeen Malira could easily be D1 for the rest of the year here, averaging like 115, because he's been on a storm recently, if my memory serves me correct. If we go season stats here, and go back down, he's gone 142, 119, 100, 126 last 4 weeks, and raised his average for the season from 104.8 to 109.6. That is 145, 187. That is 487 in the last 4 weeks. That's an average of 121.75 in the last 4 weeks. That's a huge average. If you even look at his last 5 average, you'll see that as well. But you can see 120.3 last 3, 110.0 last 5, and that's including a 60 in the last 5. So once he gets that 60 out of that system, that'll be closer towards that 120 marker for the last 5, which is quite ridiculous. That's 10 points above the best D1 across the year. If he can continue that type of run, he's going to go crazy. And I'm pretty sure St Kilda have a pretty good run for ball users. Anyway, back to the top 10% and the trade-ins for the week. I'm pretty sure we're getting to the point where there are some pod players, and one thing I will do quickly here before we end this out, if I go this way, is it? Hopefully this works. Okay, no, that's not going to work. I probably got it set to defenders. Yeah, there we go. So let's go through here. So Anderson, Charleston, people just getting a defender mid rookie or 99k guy that isn't going to play. So a red dot there. Another couple of red dots as well. Some people using that 99k that's pretty much out for the year, that has a really good Sunday schedule, I would say. So you got that. And then basically one thing I do want to look at here is actually sort of in this range, I would say, and SuperCoach is probably not going to like it, but let's just go through sort of this this range here, this 488k range, and really look at the sort of guys that people could potentially be bringing in because they have a really cheap, like Dylan Moore. I think it actually should be brought in a little bit more than what he is being brought in. He is now 429k, and off the buy has, I think, 12 break even, so he's probably going to be 470k, 480k next week, potentially with another good score. Has North Melbourne's well. So if you wanted to hold out another week and get Dylan, if you had trades and you already had the big boys, etc., Dylan Moore's another guy that you could potentially grab just because he's done it in the past, and his last 3 or so games, or 2 games, have really turned it around. Well, I mean, he's sort of just had that one big game. So if you want a guy that's probably going to have some spike scores, and now that he's sort of gotten over his injuries he's had in preseason and all that stuff, I think he's a guy that could really return to that sort of 95 range and have those really spike scores as well, which are very, very valuable. And at 429k, if he's your sort of 23rd, 24th premium, then that's going to be really good to have there. So, and then you've got, obviously, Humphrey could be a guy that you potentially bring in, but I don't think a lot of people will turn to that area. Horn Francis, I'd probably wait a week just because he's, I know he's got a 54 break even, but his shoulder is just like hanging on almost with a thread at the moment, it feels like. So he'll be a guy potentially next week that a lot of people target just because, I mean, he has the run coming up soon. He's got that West Coast game coming up soon, which he will probably score very well in, but he's just, it feels like he's playing a little bit injured at the moment, but we'll see how that that develops, because he's gone, 224 in the last 2 weeks. That's 112 average. So he's done all right in the last 2 weeks, but obviously had that shoulder complaint in the fourth quarter of that game against, who was it? Was it Carlton or something? Or no, they're playing Carlton. It was against St Kilda maybe? Melbourne, that he had that complaint in the fourth quarter. Lipinski, Flanders. Flanders could be an interesting one. I just don't think he's done. He's obviously 100 break even, so he's not going to necessarily score. Sorry, no, he's not necessarily going to go up in price because he's still got that 100 break even. But he could be a guy to watch this week, because if that roll returns, he's gone 89, 90, 32, 91. If his roll returns again with another 90 or so at 378k, it could be a guy that you just like, his roll could potentially, you're basically betting on his roll changing and returning back to what he was at his best. Because if he does, he could return back to potentially, not even fully, but potentially somewhere close to this 100, 105 marker guy, and another defender, midfielder, flexibility guy. If you're going to get, you could potentially have an M9 on your hands that's averaging 90, 95 with a potential spike games of 100, 120 for 380k, which is a really, really, yeah. So I would just be watching him this week just because he's been moved around every which way, and that could be a really good guy to look at. And then is there any other cheapies that I necessarily like? I don't think so. Let's just see if there's anyone in the top sort of 5 or 1% cheapies that people are bringing in. I don't think people are bringing in these type of guys this week, to be honest with you. I think more people are looking at the really like the Butters, the Bonts, the Darcys, etc. at the moment. But let's just quickly look at this and we'll get that out of the way there. So, yeah, it seems like very much the same things happening. Dylan Moore, as well as even some people bringing in Sam Flanders, but Dylan Moore looks like the cheapie that everyone's bringing in alongside not Sean. I keep on getting those two mixed up first name-wise, but Sam Darcy is the other cheapie that everyone is looking at as well, because he's a guy that's averaging something like 105 or so, or 110 when you take out that injury game. Let me just double check for you guys. He is averaging here 101.8 with the injury in, and 798 through 7 games. That is 114 without the injury there. So yeah, he has absolutely huge numbers without the injury as well. But anyway, that is the video there, going through all the trade targets for SuperCoach round 16. Probably one of the last big ones, because I know a lot of the community, the general trend is that most people are down to sort of 2 to 4 trades or so. So a lot of the community won't have big moves next week. I think a lot of us will probably be holding still and just waiting for a potential injury or potential cash generation to massively go up so that we can get another premium on the really low end of it, etc. But anyway, that is the video. If you did enjoy it, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and I will see you guys in the next video, which will be my fantasy team reveal for round 16. Bye, guys.